recently read that like there's this concept of context switching where your brain has to go, okay, now we're out of that meeting and we're instead having lunch break with our friend, or now we're going into this other meeting. And like, so that task of switching between things is a task. And like, you're not just cold stop into the next thing. You have to kind of let your brain turn over and deal with that. And
That's very interesting.
It is, isn't it? I'm very slow at it, it turns out. I really have to structure my day so that I minimize that as much as I can and block things into time. So what's just happened there is before we started recording, I was having that little moment of being all like malfunctioning. And now I've come out the other side of it. So thank you for your patience, as always.
Can you train that muscle? Can I get better at it? Because I'm not very good at it.
I haven't learned.
There's something you can do.
There's got to be a way, right?
Like it's not going to go anywhere.
Learnable.
I've got so many things I need to get better. I need to improve.
Sometimes I think just like knowing and recognizing that this is going to happen, and then like in a sensible arrangement, what I would have done is to be here and do all that mode shift nonsense before the time, before go
before
time.
4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. That would have been sensible. Do you fancy a podcast?
Shall we pod?
Shall we get into it?
Let's pod. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, hi, Vicky.
Hi, Cara. How are you?
Yeah, good. It always feels a bit weird that I say hi after we've done all of our...
Because I don't think we ever say hi on the chat. We just go, this is what we're doing now.
So yes, in the spirit of welcome and warm greetings. Hi.
Hello.
Yes, I'm well, thank you. And I'm a little nervous because I haven't talked it over with you, but I've got something a little out of left field today.
Oh my God. What are we walking into?
Go with it, and we'll see what you think.
Amazing.
So today we are talking about a lady called Dr. Shoshanna Zuboff, and I will start by saying that the main piece of her career that kind of got me to know about her in the first place happened in 1988, and it has caused some division in my household about whether that is history.
Oh, so, all right.
Like, it definitely is. It's, decades ago.
What do you mean? Anything in the past counts as history, babe.
Well, there are people who were slightly resentful of things that happened after their birth date being classed as history. So I will say that for a start.
Poorly. What is he doing?
In one. So in 1988, a young Harvard professor, who is our Dr. Shoshanna Zuboff, wrote a book that was an absolute revolution, really insightful, really prophetic about the way that the working world around her was changing. And over the decades that followed, which construe history, just saying, it's held that place. And you and I came to the world of work in the 90s and afterwards, in your case. We've inherited the landscape that Dr. Zuboff predicted, where computers would not only assist humans in their tasks, but shape the business world at every level. That isn't a given. To someone in the 80s, that was something that she had to work out. So we are going to look today at Dr. Shoshanna Zuboff and find out what else she wants to tell us about this digital age. And the sources for today, her own website was very helpful. There was a really cool article in Business Insider. There's a group called the Center for the International Governance of Innovation, and they had a piece all about her work. There are numerous articles, The Guardian, The Observer, Harvard's website, and then finally there's a group called the Five Rights Foundation, and she's incredibly deeply involved with that, so that was helpful as well. Right.
I mean, is this photo from the 80s is my first question. Or is that rude?
Might be. No, I think she's kind of got a retro look, and I think that photo is from the 90s.
Okay.
So she's still, she's doing the thing that we all do. You find what works for you and you stick with.
It's like a lion's mane. It's incredible.
She's got an absolutely amazing head of hair.
Thick red lips. Yes.
Love. So yes, she definitely knows how to capture the camera. There's a few photos throughout. She's very cool. But yeah, this usually we start a pod by talking about the person's childhood, their background, and that feels slightly creepy when it's somebody who's like working and living in our time, our contemporary of ours. So the biological and biographical stuff is a little bit thin on the ground here, but I do have a quote from one of the articles about her that just sort of gives you this little, like, perfect little walnut of information about her to get us started. So if you would be so kind.
I'll be a walnut. Born in New England in 1951, Zuboff is the daughter of a pharmacist and homemaker. Her maternal grandfather, Max Miller, was a self-made entrepreneur who invented the servo mechanism for the vending machine. That's interesting.
Cool.
In her youth, she did lots of growing up in Argentina, living on the Altiplano with people who lived very simple lives. What's an Altiplano?
It's an area in Argentina. I think it's like a long, high plain. So
I
it's
see.
the suggestion is throughout that article, she grew up in a really simple rural community. And the time that she spent in that kind of less technical commercial world compared to growing up in New England in America, it kind of seems to have had a lifelong impact. She loves nature, she loves animals, but she also loves people. She went on to study a bachelor's degree in philosophy and then did a PhD in social psychology, which is kind of studying how our thinking and behavior is influenced by the attention and presence of others. So how we changed when observed, or how we may go along with things just because they appear to be the social norm, which
Yeah, that creeps me out so much.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
hold that thought in your mind because
Okay.
yeah, it's going to be very relevant to what we're talking about today. So in 1981, Dr. Zuboff joined Harvard as a staff member and became one of the first tenured women at the school as a professor of business administration. And
Oh,
from that,
that's my
yeah,
word. Yay.
this is something you will be very, very familiar with. She's worked in that field for about 40 years in
Wow.
the sum total, and across that time, she has earned a lot of recognition, as well as being a tenured Harvard professor. Like, that wasn't enough. So I've got a quote here that kind of summarizes the recognition and establishes her position as a credible source.
Sure, when I heard 40-year career, my first thought was, I wonder how she kept her posture so straight. And I wonder how she stopped her hips seizing because she sits down all day in business
Oh,
administration. How ridiculous. Right. Her work has been recognised with the Axel Springer Award 2019, the Epic Lifetime Achievement Award 2021, and the inaugural Global Privacy Assembly Giovanni Buttarelli Award 2021. Professor Zuboff has received honorary degrees from the University of Amsterdam, the Copenhagen Business School, and McGill University. She is the Charles Edward Wilson Professor Emeritus, Harvard Business School, and a faculty associate at the Harvard Kennedy School Carr's Center for Human Rights. She's got credentials,
yeah,
okay?
she's
Yes,
yeah.
she's got it
And
all.
I mean, there's a few other bits and pieces that aren't in this list. She definitely has well established herself professionally and, with her outreach work. So we already talked about the fact that in her early years at Harvard, she wrote this book that sort of predicted how computing was going to impact the world of business.
By the way,
It
just having a book in general is an achievement. Like, I love how
right.
this is like a footnote at the start of her story that catalyst everything else, but like it's still a pretty cool. I'd love to be an author.
I think what's happened that I really I really appreciate what she's done because she's had something she's had this concept occur to her that was so revolutionary that she was able to write a publishable book that not only was adopted by people in the field of business studies, but also rolled over and became a popular bestseller. So that's a hell of an accomplishment to sort of write about your really narrow field of industry and for it to be, recognized as something that affects us all. So yeah, this is this book.
Because that's something that's Stephen Hawkins, I don't think, did. So I know he did A Brief History Inside, but no one ever read it. It was like a coffee book. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like part of this kind of phenomenon, and everyone bought it.
Like you should have read it.
No one's read it.
Yeah, I have this theory about James Joyce's Ulysses as well, but we'll get into that another time. Yes, there are these books that everyone feels they ought to have read. Hopefully this isn't one of them.
Yeah, so. No, but it sounds from what you're saying that she bridged that. You know what I mean?
It does feel that she must have.
Yeah, she did what Stephen Hawkins wouldn't do. And also, we hadn't heard of her before today, so she isn't on that par with Stephen Hawkins in a way, which means that people who were buying it must have read it or must have had an interest enough in it, I think.
Yes, quite so. So that's her entree into the public arena beyond, the sort of academic world that she was working in. She's got this book out called In the Age of the Smart Machine, The Future of Work and Power. And it hits just as this sort of wave of computerization is about to engulf the business world. And we're talking late 80s now, the central argument being that computers are different from previous industrial machines because they don't just automate human work. They do what she calls informating it. And the difference is automation is replacing human effort with machine effort. So, the steam shovel instead of somebody standing there with a manual pickaxe, whatever. Informating simultaneously performs the task of the human, but also produces an intellectual understanding of everything it's doing. It turns that process of effort into data, and that used to be an invisible thing, but now, because the computer's doing it, it has a record of everything that it's doing.
Yeah, got you.
I don't know if good.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was explaining that very well. It's very complex stuff to try to summarize. But her point was that companies could then use that data, and how they would do so was the key question of the age.
This is huge.
Right?
It's massive.
Are the managers of a company using the technology to tighten surveillance and control of their workers? Are they trying to protect and preserve the hierarchy? Or are they allowing the knowledge that they're gaining to empower workers and kind of flatten that management structure and give the people who are on the workforce genuine participation in the workplace?
So much.
The fact that these things were even open to discussion is why this book is still relevant now. It opened this whole conversation out. So that's her starting point. And from there, she's doing her thing. She's teaching. She's on these boards. She's receiving these awards. In 2002, she writes another book, this time with her husband, who's a businessman himself.
He jumped on the ride, did he? He was I know.
I think, to be fair to him, having done the reading, I think he's a baller himself, and he was bringing a lot of practical knowledge about the world of business. And
he's a supportive husband.
He is, and it's a solid collaboration. They're bringing the kind of academic and research-based and the practical and real-world-based into the mix.
Super.
The book is called The Support Economy: Why Corporations Are Failing Individuals and the Next Episode of Capitalism.
Oh my God.
And there's a quote here that kind of says what this book was about.
I don't know if I'm ready for what this book is about. The next episode of Capitalism.
Get on board.
Today's consumers have moved beyond accepting the mass produce to instead seek individualized relationships of advocacy and support that enable control over their lives and meaningful channels for voice, connection, and influence. The chasm that separates new people and old organizations is filled with frustration, pain, and mistrust, but that it has also laid the foundation for the next wave of wealth creation as new principles of distributed capitalism combined with new distributed technologies to meet these new human needs. That's very wordy, very, very
Yeah,
wordy,
sorry, it's a
but
bit of a mouthful.
I think I know what she's saying. So this is what, 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pre-Facebook, we're pre-Twitter, we're Microsoft 99 on your computer, 98 on your computer. Computers not in schools, computers not in the home really, unless you're very middle classy and above.
Early adopters.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the pivot point that they're picking out there, and the reason I've included it, is because they're recognizing that people are now no longer interested in just being one of many. They're recognizing as consumers they're individuals, and they're expecting a level of service that the kind of computers that have been adopted by business will allow businesses to fulfill if they care to. But really, I've included it for a specific reason. It's because I think it very succinctly makes the point. Dr. Zuboff is not anti-capitalist, and she's certainly not a technophobe. She's a business studies professor who really wants technology to work for everybody, for the employer, for the consumer, for the shareholder, everybody across the board. So that context kind of helps us land her next move with a lot more force. And this is where we've been headed. So in 2019, Dr. Zuboff's most recent book came out, and this one is called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism.
There's a theme.
The Fight for a Human Future at the New Frontier of Power. And there's a little précis here if you care to share it.
The heady optimism that defined the internet's early days is gone. Technologies that were meant to liberate us have deepened inequality and stoked divisions. Tech companies gather our information online and sell it to the highest bidder, whether government or retailer. Profits now depend not only on predicting our behaviour, but modifying it too. Oh, so she's changed tone a little bit there.
Yes, her tone seems to shift across the decades as she sees which direction the wind is blowing. So this recognition of surveillance capitalism at that particular moment in time, it's her view of the new economy.
Which she called just right in 2019.
Yeah, the timing was
Time on
apt.
the money.
Yeah, she's definitely got a shrewd eye for what's happening in the world around her. She is seeing, much like the early wave of computing was able to see how workers were performing, and that could be leveraged to make a better, more inclusive workplace. She's seeing how these tech companies at that point and since are kind of gobbling up the human experiences that we are all having through their products, often without our knowledge, really.
Or consent or anything like that.
And that is then used as sort of raw material, as she says, to not only predict, but potentially to alter our behavior.
Yes.
And she names names, Vicky. She's not afraid to call people out. So she points to Google and to Facebook as the earliest and most deliberate operators in this arena, where they have gone quite deliberately, in her view, to create systems that don't just track what we like, but what we hover over, what we scroll past, what we share, what we click away from, where and when we use apps. All of it is data. So like that sort of process data in the informating or informating, however we're saying it, it's now being used by surveillance capitalist companies to get insights to us as people. And a lot of researchers, all the researchers that came before her, had sort of seen that as what they call digital exhaust. It's just waste product, what we don't click on, what we scroll away from. It was seen as nothing, but it actually turned out to be the entire point.
So, sorry, what's this digital exhaust thing? That's the thing that we
Yeah,
don't use.
she is talking about the fact that researchers had seen the amalgamated data about what users were, the fact that, oh, this person always logs on at 1 a.m, that's incidental. We're storing that for no particular reason. That's nothing at all. But she is saying that companies who are surveillance capitalists, that is not incidental that they capture that. They are very deliberately using that information and reconfiguring it into something useful for a really specific purpose.
Which is smart. It's a smart idea. It's just creepy as hell. Yes. Companies like Facebook and Google have more information on citizens than our governments do. They can use this comprehensive knowledge to actually feed back right to the same interface from which the data is collected. Now, the same digital architecture used for monitoring becomes the means of behavior modification with program triggers, subliminal clues, rewards, punishments, social comparison dynamics. All of it aims at tuning and herding human behavior in the direction that aligns with commercial goals of business customers. It's so depressing yet so true.
Yes, it's bleak, but intuitively, it's correct. The companies we're talking about here, and not just those two, many companies ever since, they're aware when you're scrolling alone and you see all these images of people out having the best time of their lives, and suddenly you're being advertised a little treat that you had been considering.
But also, it's not just you, is it? Like, I know that makes it feel very individual, but you're such a tiny blip in their universe of billions and billions of users and billions of pieces of data. Like, I know it feels individual, but it's really not, is it?
It's a mass strategy for commercial ends, and the kind of politicization of that, where people are fed ever more provocative and extreme things because those are the things that drive engagement. But then the individual cost of that is someone who perhaps started out curious or reasonable ends up on some really dark, fringe, reactionary material. We know it's happening. And the point that I think Zuboff's making, that her, sort of social psychology background and her business background allows her to see, is that this is not accidental. It is deliberate and it's extremely profitable. So that's what she's pointing to.
I remember when that first came out, I was like, oh yeah, take my data. It means nothing. Like, who cares what I'm doing or whatever? It doesn't matter. But now, because you've joined up and they've put you all together and they've divided you into these little pockets of consumers that you are, then it becomes meaningful, doesn't it? And
it does, once you start adding the behavior modification piece into the mix. So we're not just figuring out who you are, we're now aware of what we can do to influence you towards X outcome. And again, this isn't accidental. This is, by her view, exactly what these platforms were built
predatory, isn't it?
That's a good word for it. So she talks a little bit in her book as well about how we got here, about how you had, this is very American-centric, but perhaps applies to Britain as well, at least, but you had these really conservative economic ideas from the Reagan years in the 80s, or the Thatcher years over here, I suppose. And then that pairs with these neoliberal theories in the 90s, where you have kind of Clinton or Blair kind of going, let's just let business be. And so the state's ability to look for market oversight sort of erodes away. And then the attacks of 9/11 happened in America, the terrorist attack, and privacy kind of went out the window in public opinion. They really, I think there was a real acceptance that surrendering our privacy was a necessary step to be more safe and secure. So we've got all
Okay.
of this kind of coming together at the same time. And then we have the fact that these companies are developing software and approaches that are, the way she puts it, is undetectable as a surveillance platform
Mm-hmm.
and unimaginable because nothing like this had ever existed before.
They're good words. They're busy. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
And on top of that, we now have a point in our lives which we will recognize that almost everything we need to do on a daily basis simply to conduct our lives effectively is, in her words, a forced march through surveillance capitalism's supply chain. So
Yes.
you know how it is. You want to pay a parking ticket, book a GP appointment. You want to order at the bar at a place where there aren't really that many staff. You're installing an app. You're going on a website. You're
I
clicking the
know.
cookies.
Ugh.
It
Yes.
feels absolutely unavoidable. It
And
just feels
especially
like,
AI. It's how do we avoid it? How do we get out of AI? Because it is in everything we do. And just like you were saying, that's the next step, isn't it? Like AI just fit, which means you're fed
yes,
what you want to hear constantly. And
that's really
it's
interesting. And I'm pleased to say she does talk a little bit about this because that
okay.
thing, the fact that it's everywhere means that our resistance is worn down. And to some
Hmm.
extent, that's just practical. You have to live your life.
You have
But
to.
she talks about the implications of that in a moment. So we will get to that.
Yeah.
So to sort of address the negatives, I suppose, the harms that come when we have these platforms riding roughshod over everybody, they are real, they are demonstrable, they can be severe. So you kind of think about the news stories around Cambridge Analytica and the 2016 American
Yes.
presidential election,
Which there was
or
no consequence to. And the same
no,
with Brexit and everything else. Like,
quite right.
yeah.
And then on the really tragic end of things, you have the cases like this young lady Molly Russell who took her own life, or young people who are drawn into self-harm by these engagement maximizing algorithms. And to that point, Dr. Zuboff, through her foundation work and her outreach around privacy and protecting young people, specifically in that like digital space, there's a documentary that's just come out called Molly versus the Machines that talk about this girl and what happened to her and how the algorithms serving her this harmful content contributed to her death, and how our legal framework really roundly fails her and everybody else at the same time. And it is overwhelming and it is depressing, and it sometimes feels like, well, we are powerless to do anything about it. There's a quote here from Dr. Zuboff about why and how we should not despair.
Many people see our current conditions and they feel beleaguered and depressed and think, oh man, this is inevitable. How are we ever going to exist? But I believe that that is an incorrect attitude, the incorrect conclusion. Surveillance capitalists like to tell us that this is inevitable and it's a consequence of digital technology. That's just hogwash. It's easy to imagine the digital without surveillance capitalism, but it is impossible to imagine surveillance capitalism without the digital. One is technology and the other is an economic logic that hijacked technology as its Trojan horse. Oof.
She's calling it out and saying, they are saying, if you want the tech, you're going to have to accept that we're going to watch everything you do and influence all of our users and sell your data. And that's just how it is. And she's
She's
going,
saying,
bullshit,
there's another way.
bullshit. And so her term for all of these
Hogwash,
companies,
Cara. Hogwash.
yes, not bullshit. She's much too classy for that kind of thing. Hogwash. She calls these companies Big Other, like Big Brother, but yeah.
Oh, she's very
like,
witty.
she is witty. If you're going to be a professor, you need to have a little patter going. She gives
Yes.
a lot of talks. She's out there. She knows what she's doing. She talks about Spain being a model of what pushback looks like. I'll take this quote because I do feel like I'm putting you to work here.
Well, she's an author, isn't she? I guess there's like so many quotes to
There's
choose
so many
from.
quotes, and I just find her so fascinating.
Yeah.
So she says, in Spain, the right to the future tense is on the move, insisting that the operations of surveillance capitalism and its digital architecture are not, and never were, and never would be inevitable. Instead, the opposition asserted that even Google's capitalism was made by humans to be unmade and remade by democratic process, not commercial decree. And yeah, so she's very clearly saying, do not buy the hogwash that if you want the search engine, you have to accept that we're going to do whatever the hell we want with your data. No, there is a place that government and consumers can take to push back and say, we're not accepting that, do better. And
so what are Spain doing? What are they?
Spain has most recently been pushing back on young people and the social media piece, and I think that is what this specific quote relates to.
So like no social media to under 16s or something.
Yeah, and just taking a direct legal standpoint on this is what we will allow and this is what we will not allow. We don't just have to accept it like we're being lavage fed like a foie gras goose. You don't get to say as a company, this is how it is. We tell you. Just like we did with coal mining, just like we did with any other human life improving product that has historically been made in a way that damages the world or people. We say, okay, yes, we decide to have fossil fuels right now, but that doesn't mean you can just tear up any bit of landscape any which way you please and to hell with the consequences. You have to work within agreed, democratically set parameters. So she's saying we've done it before with other industries. We can do it here.
Right.
Spain are already on the march and doing it. She likes GDPR as a step in the right direction.
Okay. Because I find it exhausting. But that's because I have to do like 20 hours of training on it. It's insane.
It is, but you know, I think maybe this will help you to feel a little bit better about the worthwhile nature of what that protection is gaining you. She's working now with a group, that Five Rights Foundation, which is a lobbying group to try to build a better, safer digital world. But there's a quote here, she doesn't just want to aim for protecting children.
Right.
End of discussion.
Opening your umbrella does not stop the rain. It's not enough to put up a firewall banning our children from social media and calling it a solution. Pulling our children out does nothing to alter the conditions that have proven themselves catastrophic for people and for democratic societies. I did think that, because I think New Zealand have done something similar, haven't they, with social media? And I'm like, God, those kids are lucky. Can I have it? Can I have the ban? Like, I would love the ban, right? I am no better than a 16-year-old when it comes to doom scrolling. You know what I mean? I'm just not.
But imagine if that wasn't, you don't have to be banned if it's not toxic in the first place.
Right,
because it's not deliberately and calculatedly made to be addictive.
Because it does make you feel crap. Yeah.
It does. It makes you feel lousy. And to some extent, we take responsibility and we make better decisions. To some extent, the companies that are making products deliberately addictive, just like with cigarettes, need reining
accountability.
In. They need to not do that. And that is Dr. Zuboff's vision, where capitalism continues, where business continues, technology continues, but we can have these personalized services, creative, collaborative workplaces without just accepting that any harmful hogwash that the tech companies choose to impose is just the price of admission, not as a child, not as an adult.
But how? By not tracking this data? Is that what she's saying? Don't track the data.
By not intentionally making your product addictive.
Yeah.
By not intentionally offering engagement through the psychological mechanism of fear, intimidation, outrage. These are all known tactics. And she's saying they don't have to do that. They choose to do that because it drives their profits. And we can say, no, that's unacceptable. There are laws that can be leveraged to make that stop. What I appreciate is that she has this well seasoned viewpoint on the world of work, and her insights can't just be dismissed. You know, she has the chops.
Yeah, and it's like, God, she's got up against so much. Like, it's gonna need a. Oh, it's a big topic.
It really, really is. I think, and yeah, I appreciate you kind of going with me on this because I know it's really meant to be a history podcast. And I think we started from a position that was already, in the view of some members of my household, slightly tenuous, calling the 80s history. We've now moved into modern times. It is history. And
Because the problem is now, I guess, they've capitalized on it. So they have money as a weapon and they have money as a means. And I don't know what she has, but my gosh, she's up against. It's exciting.
she has the sword of truth and being correct. And I think
being correct.
Being the eternal Pollyanna, what I will say is, although it is tempting to just think, well, that's it, you know, the gig's up, they've already won. If you look at historically factories polluting rivers, or you know, the oil industry or the cigarette industry or the alcohol industry or any number of things that we might want in certain sort of applications or in small doses, but we don't therefore just want to let anything at all happen. They have been dealt with through regulatory means, even though those industries have got vast sort of reserves of money to lobby. So I do think there is reason to hope.
She's looking at it from above, isn't she? She's looking at it on a even a macro level. I don't know what that word is, but she's, I guess the people in it, so your Mark Zuckerbergs and your Elon Musk are like, they're in it, aren't they? So they can't
them
see.
And us. So
yeah, no, yeah, 100%.
Oh, well, this is just how it is. I guess I have to accept ads in order to read the news. Do you though? Do you?
Yes. Or you,
you would never question it because it's the water we swim in. But she is looking at it from a remove
a much
and going,
bigger historical.
We can do better.
Yeah.
And she's taking that back to the Lords. She's taking that back to Congress. She's working on these different bodies. One thing I would say, and I can't remember the specific name of it, one of the awards that she received most recently after this book was published was about digital frontiers and digital progress. And the previous winner of that award had been Mark Zuckerberg. And it's like, okay, so we see the world opening out to her viewpoint and going, actually, maybe some of these things that we have been persuaded we have to accept are not good enough. And yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about her today. She's got I know we're history and I know we should be a history pod, but I could not resist because she has a view not only of something that happened historically, but also of the future.
She's been around longer than Zuckerberg, hasn't she? So she
sure has
that other thing going on. Oh, it's interesting.
So she sees what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's it. That's what I'm bringing you today.
What a smart lady.
Very, very cool. And I'm glad she's out there asking those questions and poking those bears because, yeah, we shouldn't just accept, well, this is just how it is. You're just going to have to sit through X, Y, Z. No.
I love the idea that there might be a better way. Isn't that nice? Yes. What a little bit of hope. It's amazing.
Well, we're like let's say, the era of Dickens, where factory workers, there's this industrial revolution, and suddenly people are losing their arms in mangles and sewing machines, making cheap clothes or whatever. And people are like, well, that's just how it is. You're going to lose an arm or two. No. We now look back at that time and go, absolutely not. That's disgraceful. Thank God they sorted that out. I can't help but think that in 10, 20, 30 X years, they will look back at this time of just rogue, bad actors. Well, just say those poor people were living through an unregulated, unchallenged time of corporate calling the shots. And it won't last forever because it can't last forever, you know? It's just untenable. And I think the children are a frontier that we can all agree on, that it is clearly beyond the pale that young people are being exposed to these harms. But you're right, that us too, like you were saying, so
What about me?
For myself, I am fallible and will be addicted to the addictive thing, you know?
Gosh,
so anyway, I'm kind of like petering out rather than ending with a bang, but that's the pod for today, Vicky. That's what I'm bringing.
Thank you so much. I have learned something new, and how cool is that you're challenging our thinking?
Well, what I have found, it's helping me to be a bit less addicted to the social media, because now I'm like, ew, stop looking at me, social media.
That should all be our reactions. Ew.
Ew. Well, thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of She Changed History. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Find us on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you've got any ideas of women you'd like us to cover in a future episode, please comment on the socials or email us at shechangedhistory@gmail.com. Catch you next time.